about ready to go live here, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. It's a really nice Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, here in my secret, undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And I want to wish everybody a happy Malcolm X Day and a happy National Roadie Day. And I don't know about you guys, but I think anybody that plays guitar would really like to have a roadie. I mean, I could employ one. I'd be happy. But anyway, today, as if that wasn't enough, today we've got a special guest, a gentleman named Raymond Liu from Fremont, California, is going to join us for a little interview. And Raymond is running for state senate from District 10, which is Fremont, California. And Fremont is in the East Bay, and it's just across. I want to say San Pablo Bay. I used to live not far from there. Uh, but I'll ask Raymond to help zero us back in. I always kind of like Northern California. God knows there's a lot to do just, in nature for the weekend. You've got Big Sur, Mendocino, Carmel, the Redwoods. It's just, it really is spectacular. The wine country, heaven forbid I should forget wine country. But anyway, we'll get Raymond to give us the lowdown on what's going on in Fremont. And as Raymond was also the youngest member ever to be elected to Fremont City Council. And I don't know about you guys, but I always kind of like when people get, like involved like that. And anyway, toward that end, how about I usually play this Ada Arsenio video. It usually takes like a minute or so, just to remind everybody what we're up against. And let me play that really quickly now. She sent me another one, and I'm trying to download it and ran out of time today. So anyway, let me play this, and I will get that down and ready for tomorrow. Hold on.
So I got this in my mailbox yesterday, and I thought, that's interesting. I don't remember ever sitting on a gold couch wearing a shiny gold jacket. And then I realized that they photoshopped me. This picture, and honestly, it's very flattering that they would Photoshop me hanging out in such a cool, trendy place. And who are the masterminds who came up with this message? Well, I have an answer. According to the documents that came out yesterday, it's the pollsters for the NRA, the Republican National Committee, and Devin Nunes. And that is the best they can do. Unfortunately, you're going to be seeing much more of this. Donald Trump's closest allies, corporations that have given him more than 20 million, are part of a group that has already committed to spending $3 million to defeat me because they're afraid of a union leader and a proud immigrant who will take them on and win. Many of these same corporations are attacking me, are profiting millions of dollars off of ICE contracts. So you're probably going to see me photoshopped into a whole lot of other things this election cycle. I hope they Photoshop me somewhere fun. But please remember, these are all lies, and they are funded by Donald Trump's allies.
Guys, I do that because at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day for that matter, that's why Democracy Radio Network exists. We want to elect good, decent Democrats because they have shown to have better policies and better arguments. When people resort to, name calling, I guess let's just call it what it is, name calling and lying about the person's character, they do that because they cannot attack the policies. You see, if they could attack the policies, they would. But they will attempt to undermine credibility by making Ada Arsenio appear like she's, doing really well on the, on the public's nickel or dime. And let me tell you, for those of you who don't know Ada or have never heard of her, she's got my undying respect. Her parents came here from Nicaragua as refugees. Ada takes a job in a hotel, organizes the workers, rises to management and president of the union, and she's been chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Orange County. And to me, that is the American success story. And I cannot understand why people want to tear someone down like that. I mean, that's the best of America there. So if you agree with me, give me a call at 949-629-3820. Or if you disagree, give us a call at 949-629-3820 and give us your brief thoughts on those, on attacking people. Just attack. And you know what else? I had wanted to play us in and got so excited about having Raymond. I completely missed it. Let me play us in for just a second with a little Junior Brand. Hang on. My job, I'm the highway patrol. And guys, we can only have so much fun today, but that was a little Junior Brown doing highway patrol. And I did that because the highway patrol guys got the red lights and kind of get out of my way. And I feel that the 2026 midterms are the time for Democrats to lead. There's three choices in life basically. There's lead, follow, or get out of the way. Well, we are here to lead, and we're here to lead with sound policies, uh, trying to redress some of the wrongs that were visited on the country by 47, the orange tinged subhuman being that's occupying the White House. So please keep that in mind. We don't, we as Democrats right now, we are in just an unenviable position. We have no power in Washington. Legislative branch, nope, no House, no Senate. Executive branch, nope, no president, no vice president. And how about judicial? Well, God knows we suck there. And by the way, at the Supreme Court level, don't you guys think it's a little obscene for a judge to sit on the Supreme Court of the United States for 30 years? I mean, why we don't have rotating terms and have each parties get to appoint. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, the Supreme Court pretty much has no credibility, and that's really sad because I've always, tried to be a decent American and respect my country and respect the rule of law. And what we're seeing now is someone who doesn't exactly respect the rule of law. And I want to kind of touch on, I always go through some of the headlines with you. And today is kind of like no different, but I will. This was the headline in the New York Times today. After Trump drops suit, U.S. allots $1.8 billion as redress to his allies, and critics call it a slush fund. Okay, let's now, if I'm not mistaken, this is somehow based on January 6th. And I saw the video. I listened to every minute of the committee hearings. I heard it bisected and dissected, and you know what it comes down to? Same thing it always comes down to: credibility. Who do you believe? Who do you believe? Do you believe the evidence showed that it was a plot instigated by Trump and his insiders long before January 6th? You think John Eastman and Peter Navarro had a little something to do with this? And let's see. My best recollection involved Trump screaming something about, "We got to take the Capitol back, and I'll march with you. And if you don't have a Capitol, you don't have a country." Just irregular lunatic stuff. Isn't that a shame? Regular lunatic stuff from the President of the United States. But when you get a regular lunatic, you get regular lunatic stuff. So, as I say, my recollection is that after they had this little kind of rally on the mall, and there were people with guns, like, capable of mass murder, and Trump orders the metal detectors taken down. Why? Well, because they weren't there to shoot him, was his rationale. They were going to shoot other people. What the hey? It wasn't him. What did he care? Okay, so let's get back to this $1.8 billion. And, these days and times, it's not uncommon to hear, the term billions of dollars. And, we all know Musk wants to be the first trillionaire. And wasn't Apple the first company to reach a trillion-dollar valuation? I kind of think they were. And those, so he's talking about $1.8 billion as a settlement for having his tax returns, I guess, leaked. You've seen the IRS for $10 billion. I think some subcontractor to the IRS actually did it. So he sues the government, or specifically sues the IRS for $10 billion, claiming defamation or, whatever it is he claims on the particular day he threatens the lawsuit. So, and lo and behold, time goes on, and he says, "You know what? I'm a nice guy," or his attorneys say, and you can assume the Justice Department came to the IRS with this. And the deal was, in exchange for $1.8 billion, I would drop my $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. And furthermore, the purpose of this $1.8 billion is to redress some of the patriots who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Now, does that not turn truth on its head? I mean, it's just, it's delusional. I mean, people kind of joke about Trump being disconnected from reality and all that. And this is just, it's just proof. And not only that, it's proof that it's infective or infectious. I mean, the craziness at the top is just insane. I'll go into like the $500 million worth of stock trades in the last little while, especially while he's praising or the company in whose that he bought stock in. So guys, please take every vote seriously and every position seriously. State and city council, state board of equalization, treasurer, pay attention to everything and everybody. And when you want to know who to vote for, like I said, it always comes down to the same thing: credibility. Who's telling the truth? Who do you want to represent you? Sorry. And it's not like Trump came into this without a reputation. The evidence supports the conclusion that dishonesty is is not exactly a new thing with Donald Trump, right? Is this not just extortion? I, the president, am suing you, Department of Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, for $10 billion. But that's okay. We don't really want to get, obscene. But we'll settle for 1.8, walk away, and I'll use it to give away to my guys. That's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Now let me ask you this: what if? And I don't do the math very well, so you have to help me. But what if, I don't know, how about half of it, $900 million? If you had $900 million to spend, and you wanted to raise your own personal army, I think you could do that with $900 million. I think you could get a probably fairly effective force. And what's to stop that? Not only is there nothing to stop that, but the past behavior suggests a less than honorable path forward with $1.8 billion to splash around. And, I need to keep repeating this: $1.8 billion. Now, as I look around, I spent a lot of time in Santa Ana, California, and Costa Mesa, California, and all that. And I actually can tell and can see, particularly in the some of the grocery stores, that the reduction in SNAP benefits is, it's having real effects. People aren't able to buy as much and aren't able to eat as well. And, pretty much every dollar was accounted for before the Iranian war started, or before Trump started the Iranian war. Uh, and, gasoline, I had the privilege of paying $95 for 3/4 of a tank of gasoline. What else? Something else was just outrageously expensive. I think a bag of chips was like $5 at the grocery store. And so everything's gotten really expensive. And before everything got really expensive, before the war, people were already strapped. They were having a hard time. Don't forget, they were having their, at the same time, they're having their SNAP benefits taken away, the food stamps. They're taking away a lot of the health care, the rural medical facilities. And guess what's happening when all this stuff is being taken away? Oops, you're right. While all this stuff is taken away, Trump is in seventh heaven planning his ballroom and the remodel, the reflecting pond. Uh, I mean, it's like everything for me and nothing for you. Everything for me and nothing for you. Okay. I mean, that's Trump's policy in a nutshell, and that's why that's his goal as president. And just to kind of flesh this out a little more, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a semi-Trump person, and I said, "Do me a favor." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, can you name an ally that we like used to have that would be like an ally these days?" And he kind of thinks about it. I'm like, "Well, I don't think there's too many in South America. I don't think there's too many in North America. I don't think there's too many in Central America." You know what I mean? And it's just complete lunacy. Complete lunacy. So yeah, a $900 million personal army. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what kind of heavy equipment you buy. I can't imagine. Are those AR-15s like $1,000? I mean, how many of those do you buy? Yeah, a million. That's nothing from 1.8 billion. Do you build a really nice training facility and really nice like former SEALs that are diehard Trump people? Do you have those guys as trainers? Damn right you do. Especially when you guys run the CIA. They have tabs on. They know where everybody is, especially the people they don't like, and that's just a shame when you govern a country by what pleases you or what offends you, at the complete neglect of the actual people who voted for you, much less the people that didn't vote for you. Until this guy came along, there was the notion that a president was president for everybody. even if he didn't even if he didn't get your vote or she didn't get your vote, you knew they weren't just going to completely shaft you for being on the other side. And if I'm not mistaken, it kind of looks and feels like that's exactly what Trump is doing here, giving people the shaft while it's everything for him and nothing for you. All for me, nothing for you. Now, I think that pretty much defines a king. Way back when, people, I think until what, the Statute of Wills, maybe the 1400s, I don't know, something like that. Anyway, until then, everything belonged to the king. There was no right of ownership, no right of to pass it down through the generations. Yeah, it's just all the kings, and you just had it when you were alive, and after you died, the next guy took it over. Uh, so that's a king, okay? And don't you, you can just feel the audacity and the entitlement to the $1.8 billion. Guys, I don't know if this is able to be reviewed. I assume there's some mechanism to sue the IRS because they're actually the ones who gave it up. But yeah, a $1.8 billion slush fund. Okay. So anyway, I'll try to move on from that. But when that's the headline of the New York Times, I mean that's again, people say, "Oh, well, New York Times is a lousy, failing paper." One who said that, uh, and when you look at the evidence, the New York Times is an incredibly credible paper. I think they have reporters in 150 countries, 50 states. They're a big deal, and they would only have existed this long by having credibility. And that just chips away at the very nature of Trump. Zero credit. Would you believe him? God knows you wouldn't buy a used car from him or a used condo. It just reminds me of those developer guys that coat a paint on something, and tell you it's been remodeled from the studs out. And again, if he told you that, would you believe him? No, I mean, the guy's just got zero credibility because he has zero credibility because he doesn't conceive of the relevancy of truth to what he does. He only sees the end game. And the end game here, and strange, he actually, kind of is able to see that far, but it's really limited tunnel vision. I mean, truly is. It's the most dangerous place in D.C. is between Donald Trump and a dollar, and he's enriched himself by what, $3 billion over the first year and 3 months. Ladies and gentlemen, and all the ships at sea, it's time. It's time and this is the time we can actually do something. We have in this election coming up. June 2nd is the primary in California. I think today you've got Georgia and a few other primaries. And, this is our chance. Remember, without power in D.C., you have Bupkis or Skadookus. My friend Bobby Hill calls Skadookus. And you ain't want Skadookus, trust me. Anything's better than Skadookus. So that's where we are with the $1.8 billion slush fund. Sorry to kind of dwell on that, but everybody I know works really hard. I mean, there aren't any free lunches, and this is just robbery. Highway robbery, thievery, embezzlement. I mean, I don't care what you call it. Somehow or other, this is the conversion of $1.8 billion to the president. And do you recall when he got banned from running a charity in New York State because the charity he ran used like $20,000 that he donated to buy his own picture, his own portrait. I will never, I keep asking people, what besides January 6th, did he have to do? Wasn't that enough to disqualify someone from the presidency? Apparently, a few people didn't think so. And, I've come to believe that there's just a fundamental difference in the way people are wired. And some people obviously process information differently than others. All the people I had spoken to told me, oh, January 6th was a government inside, stage, whatever it is. And I'm like, well, okay, if you believe that, do you have any evidence to support that? And they go, well, no. I'm like, well, you ain't got any evidence, huh? And you want me to believe this? Well, this is what I believe, and this is my evidence. Who has more credibility? Me with my evidence of January 6th committee hearings, or the guy on the street that didn't see anything wrong? They're just, God only knows. Anyway, well, I'm hoping to check in with Raymond Liu in the next few minutes. I know, when during election season like this, even though it's only the primaries, everybody's like really burning it out now. I mean, you have to at least make it out of the primary. So we're grateful whenever a candidate has a few minutes to chat with us. But in the meantime, you get Abby Kaufman, your somewhat semi-politically savvy host here at Democracy Radio Network, the Abby Kaufman Show. And you're welcome to give us a call at 949-629-3820. And what do you think about the slush fund? Would you like a $1.8 billion gift? Now, keep in mind, that's $1.8 billion. Would you settle for $18? Would you settle for $1,800, $18,000, $180,000, $1.8 mil? No. How about 18 mil? No. How about 180 mil? No. I'll take 1.8 billion. Oh, it's and the world is not. The world is in an absolute shock. I mean, they cannot believe the buffoonery we have going on. It's completely non-functional. Does anybody really think that that's a plan that Trump is sticking to in Iran? Or does it look like he's just kind of hanging out to see what happens and react accordingly? My mother, God rest her soul, had a few sayings. One of them was "suck it up, buttercup." Another one was "cry me a river, pal." And the third one was "failing to plan is planning to fail." Incredibly simple concept, right? If you don't have a game plan, it's kind of hard to play the game. And yet it goes on daily. And it's not like that. It's not costing money either. What are we up to? $25, $30 billion in cash. And the American taxpayer, American consumer, well, that might be a little better way to put it. The American consumer has spent an extra $40 billion on gas. And would you be surprised to know that the president kind of dabbles in the stock market, with all these tantalizing companies in front of him? I mean, he does have the inside knowledge. So again, the question is, do you believe Donald Trump is trading on inside information or trading stocks improperly? There's no way he's supposed to play the stock market as president. It's just not the deal. But again, who do you believe? Do you believe the God that will make me, or you can't stop me? or do you believe the person that makes the rational argument? And Trump gets that's his superpower is not only kryptonite, but he's able to just rant on and on and on, and with complete disregard for the truth. I mean, you would have to spend the rest of your debate time uh, tearing down his arguments before you could launch any of your own. So, anyway, let's like apparently this $1.8 billion is kind of stuck in my craw. Like I said, I'm sure everybody I know works really hard, and at one point, and I see even on top, that's just hugely irresponsible. On top of all that, but given Trump's history, I don't think it's a good thing to do. I don't think it's beyond comprehension that he could build a little private army in, I don't know, Idaho or one of those kind of places that I'm not saying they cater to white supremacists, but it seems to be like where white supremacists hang out. Uh, there's a lot of land up there, and it's really hard to be found if you don't want to be found. I mean, you could do an undercover training camp really, really clandestinely, and if you don't think that thing's going on now, I don't think you understand the nature of the problem confronting us. And the problem confronting us is, no power in D.C. None. But anyway, I was thinking about some candidates that I'd like to see in 2028. I've got to, that's so long and things happen so quickly these days that you never, it's really hard to predict. Matter of fact, there was an article, I think, on the Financial Times about how oil futures curve wasn't exactly, 100% crystal ball, which tells me somebody's planning for some big disruptions. And volatility is where people make money. If the stocks stay kind of range bound, you don't make very much. But if they go up, you stand to make money. If they go down, hopefully you're a short seller. And how about that Andrew Left guy, huh? He came. I got invited to an investment banking conference a couple of years. Matter of fact, I used to always get invited. And some local guys, Roth Capital, an excellent group of people. And so we're in the room, big room, and I forgot what the topic was. And Andrew Left stands up and says, I want everybody to know who I am. And if you want to, I'll leave. And, everybody kind of knew who he was. Those who didn't know, found out really quickly. And my best recollection, I think they let him stay. I don't think they threw him out. And for those of you who don't know what short sellers do, short sellers bet against a stock. Let's say the stock is trading at $100. And let's say they think it's going to be going down to 10. They will buy a futures contract for the right to buy it at 10. And when that happens, they've made their $90 9 times their deal. So I think it's really lucrative. It's really dangerous because what if you take a position against a stock? You bet it's going to go down 10 points and it goes up 50. Yeah, it's weird. It's dangerous. And now the function that short sellers serve is, at least this is their position, as that they have the ability to target overvalued companies. And overvalued companies make for an inefficient marketplace. And that anything that makes the marketplace more efficient is good and better, and that's what we do. So both sides to it. I don't, funny thing, I don't have any real qualms about it either way. I know some of my friends would never take a position against a company, and I don't, I get the personal karma level kind of thing, but I don't know if that's the, if that's the case with everything. The truth of the matter is all these things are impersonal. When's the last time you called up your broker and went down to, pick up a whatever? It just doesn't happen anymore. We've moved on. Okay. And something else we've moved on from, just coincidentally, as I think about the pause in the Iranian threat. You know, you can't you can't escape a, a war crime when it's a war crime. You can't threaten to wipe people off the face of the earth. And you may think it's cool because you can do it, but it ain't cool when somebody else does it. And when the civilizations do not adhere to the rule of law, you get outlaws. And I'm going to suggest that there's a really big one, existing now in that old White House, but you know, was it 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? By the way, anybody been up there lately? I used to live and go to school in D.C. for a couple of years and lived on Capitol Hill, and got to go to see friends and people and all that. As a matter of fact, the secretary of the Department of Energy was an old family friend, and my granddad came up, and you could just walk into his office. His Dr. Edwards busy. Of course, things have substantially changed. Matter of fact, I was there when Reagan got shot, and in DuPont Circle, I think it was, which is a pretty cool part of town. Um, but since I have to bring this up every time I mention Reagan, because I don't know who may not know this, but Reagan is actually the root cause of homelessness, and he became the root cause of homelessness when in a when in a just an insane amount of just government chopping, not unlike what we're seeing today. uh, Reagan ended involuntary incarcerations. He ended the mental hospitals, keeping people against their will. And who wants to stay in the mental institution, right? So of course these people get dumped out on the street. But the mental institutions are empty, like he's accusing Cuba of doing it, but Reagan did it. So you've got this massive mentally ill people that have been turned out on the street. And if they're mentally ill, then you might have to doubt whether they have the ability to provide for themselves and get a job and all this stuff. And we all know the answer is no, or not consistently. Uh, so he throws the people on the street, and of course, I'd love to know. This might have been John Boehner as speaker. I forgot who would have been. But that's when they decided to cut these Section 8 housing subsidies. So you got, a cajillion people thrown out of the mental institution with nowhere to go. And if you ain't got anywhere to go, I kind of think that's like homeless. So, when people, think of Ronald Reagan as this big Republican saint, it's propaganda. You fell for the marketing. You saw this genius in Reagan instead of everybody else saying, bad time for Bonzo when he makes an movie with a chimp or a gorilla, whatever it was. I mean, how do you not think of Reagan and bedtime for Bonzo in the same breath? That's the guy. Another instance where somebody had the key to nuclear codes that had them and shouldn't, as was proved when he gets on the pre-speech, gets on the air, so, the attack begins in 5 minutes. Are you insane? You just don't do those things. And I think that those sort of things are pretty consistent with cognitive decline. And even if he's not, certified insane as is, it won't be long. I think the guy's been, he left unhinged behind a long time ago. He's been full blown bat poop crazy for a while now. And, I just think that, the evidence speaks for itself. In law school, one of my professors was talking about this case, and it was a case where there was a mouse in the Coke bottle, And the guy who bought the Coke bottle with the mouse in it was doing Coke or Pepsi with a drink maker, whatever it was. And he makes his point. He wants to invoke the doctrine of res ipsa loquitur, which means the thing it speaks for itself. And he says, in this case, the mouse in the Coke bottle speaks for itself. Some things you just can't escape. You may try to paint them a different way. Note to our propaganda and minister Caroline Levitt. You can paint all these things up, but people are just starting to catch on, and not the least bit of reason is the everything for me and nothing for you approach that's beginning to hit home from the big beautiful bill and and getting a cool $1.8 billion gift from the government. I mean that seems a little generous. $1.8 billion. And it's not like the guy had a sterling reputation to begin with. I mean, after a while, is it possible to possibly defame this guy? Yeah, you wouldn't think so. Yeah, the lunacy is just horrible. Okay, let me try to see if I can talk about something else. Uh, oh, you know what? We can't. I can't. I got to mention this. New York Times poll: 37% approval. Way to go, guy Donald. Was it Don Corleone? Not anymore. God, guys, he could. His goal may just be to become the wealthiest person in the world, not unlike his buddy Vladimir. And I got to tell you, every time you think about Trump and Vladimir, or Trump and Xi, or Trump and anybody, does anybody think Trump is actually mentally capable of getting a better deal than somebody else? Again, based on the evidence. Now that, and again, there's a difference between what Trump says and what is. And whenever you got a problem trusting when somebody says what is, you need to stand back and take a second look. Hang on a second. I'm gonna plug the old laptop in and get some extra power going. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, this doesn't have the chair doesn't have rollers, so we just kind of slide it across the carpet as best we can. And you know what? Why aren't we getting power? Hang on just a second, guys. All right, then, guys. And we are, of course, back at you with the give us a call at 949-629-3820 and let us know what's going on in your world. What kind of prices are rocking you these days? You don't have to look too terribly far, do you? I said I had the privilege of paying $95 for 3/4 of a tank of gas. That was such a thrill. And and I swear, $20 for a burger seems like the least you can do when you go out. But you know what? I think we can all take comfort in knowing that as tough as things are now, we don't have to worry a bit. Trump will find a way to make money, you know? We just so anyway, the problem is, in a nutshell, power. How do you get the power? Votes. I say why anybody would still vote Republican. I just can't imagine. It's not like they, it's not the acts that are completely peaceful. Like I said, you've got everything uh, up to and including January 6th as evidence to support a given conclusion that the guy's just a criminal. I mean, how many stock trades do you need to see? Or is it just okay because it's your guy? And we all know that that's exactly the case. And that's the logic that Mitch McConnell used to steal the Merrick Garland seat. I mean, that was impeachable. I think when it says advise and consent, I think that means within a reasonable time. That doesn't mean just to run the clock out until a new administration comes in. That doesn't mean to ignore your constitutional duties. But somehow, geez, Mitch, you got away with it. Uh, and people tend to remember these things. At least I hope they do. I know those guys in Kentucky have long memories, and what real benefit has he brought back to Kentucky? You know, McConnell just, I'm sure he's done he's done the dirty work for the president. That's just the way it is. Uh, like I said, I personally think that's an impeachable offense, as is almost everything that goes on in the Trump administration. Uh, and like I say, it's at a time when they're making money hand over fist. They cut the food stamps. They cut everything, the medical care, threw people off the insurance rolls, and made them fend for themselves in the marketplace. The truth of it is, they just hated they wanted to erase any positive impact of President Obama and President Biden. I mean, does anybody think steering away from green energy and going back to oil and gas and coal, does anybody think that's really a good idea? Does that take us forward or backward? From my standpoint, it looks like it's taking us backward. And, and like I said, how do you deal with a lunatic, especially a lunatic that's being enabled by what is supposed to be the greatest deliberative body in the world, the United States Senate? And, I'm sure you guys know all this, but, look at how election terms are structured. Did I do something? I thought that might have been somebody chiming in, but apparently it was not. So yeah, all this stuff is just, impeachable. And you would have to think that deep down under it all, that's not an unrealistic expectation when the Democrats get in. And you really don't want to do it to be vindictive so much, as it's just when you break the rules, there needs to be punishment. It needs to be done to keep, guess what, law and order, to make sure people don't deviate from the norms like that. Because you see, the norms of societies are like games with rules for games. You've got to have rules for society, just like you've got to have rules for games. And when you break those rules and cheat, and especially when there's injury to others, you need to be held accountable. And you can just pick the offense. I won't even I won't even begin to suggest one. But like I say, I can only hope that someone like George Conway or the Brookings, probably the Brookings, has our version of or our playbook for 2026 I mean, the Republicans just killed us. I mean, they took the ground, they had the ground running with that Project 2025. You had Elon Musk and his chainsaw in there before anybody knew what happened, which is how Trump operates, isn't it? Yeah, he kind of gets weasels his way in there, then does the damage so quickly, and takes the money and runs, or sets the fire and leaves so he can come back later, put it out, and collect the reward. Uh, so anyway, let's get back to who would you like to see leading the way on the presidential ticket for 2028? I know it's a long time away, but I think obviously it's gonna be somebody that skews younger. Um, and it's too bad Bernie and AOC didn't run at some point. I'm sure that would have. At least I like to think that was a winning combination at some point in time. And, okay, and let's take those two. Let's take Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, former bartender turned New York State Congresswoman. Okay, Bernie Sanders, long time in politics from Vermont, and if I'm not mistaken, he was like a mayor and a councilman, and he's been around politics forever. So let's say you have those two. Let's say you have what's his name? Bernie and AOC on one side, and let's say you have Trump and JD Vance on the other. So the heavyweight is what? Trump versus Bernie, and the undercard is AOC versus JD. And let's take the AOC versus JD first, just because isn't that how they do in boxing? They have like the smaller fights before they get to the headliner, the ring guy. So anyway, so AOC versus JD Vance. My best recollection is that, like I said, AOC was a bartender and got into politics to try to make things better. If I remember right about JD, he somehow or other got into Yale or Yale's law school, and then went to work with a venture capital firm, made some money, probably a good bit of money with a VC firm, decent VC firm, and so he writes this hillbilly elegy that's a fictionalized version of his childhood, to say the least. Even though I think he might have portrayed it as like the life and times of. I don't necessarily think the evidence supports the conclusion that it was a truthful and accurate account. Okay, so you got these two. Now, who do you think is more likely to help you? Do you think it's the former bartender who went to Congress to try to set things straight? Or do you think it's the Yale grad, ex-BC guy, author of the book he lied about, right? Now, just at face value, I think I would find Alexandria Cortez Ocasio, I would find her more believable, more credible. I think that, if you look at past statements from both, I think you would agree that AOC is much more credible than JD Vance. But so much for the undercard. Let's move on to the main event. How about Bernie and Trump? Now, there's no way Trump is anywhere near as mentally sharp as Bernie. So I would sure love to see those two debate. And, Bernie's, Bernie, you don't bullshit with Bernie. He's a pretty tough guy, and he knows what he's talking about. Think about that. He knows what he's talking about. Shouldn't that be like the bare minimum for a president? He should know what he's talking about. Oh, and I said the guys that believe him always kill me. And I ran into this guy from my old gym at the grocery store the other day. He was an older Trump guy, and he says something like, you come around to believing that election was funny. I'm like, no, I don't believe that election was funny. It's the cleanest election in history. And he goes, well, no, I have my doubts. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's stop right there. If my memory serves me correctly, it was just an outright victory for Joe Biden. And if you think otherwise, you're delusional. Okay, delusional, 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 delusional. You know what that means. And the guy goes, yeah. And I said, furthermore, you guys went to court 60 something times and you couldn't put up any evidence that this voter fraud had occurred. 60 times, 60 courtrooms, and you had zero evidence. Okay. I said, so at that point, it's pretty well proven that, you guys didn't bring out any, there's no evidence. If there was, I'm sure you would have presented it, but you ain't got any. Okay. And trust me, evidence is usually the kind of thing you kind of want to know about. Uh, mm, mm. So again, you've got, when you think about Bernie's credibility and Trump's credibility, who do you believe? Well, I think we kind of know that, and let's factor in another. Let's put in another factor. How about just an intelligence factor? Who do you think is brighter, Bernie or the Wharton grad Trump? I think Bernie's kind of got him. Hopefully Bernie was a community college graduate. And oh, by the way, I would really like to put at least some of this Trump cognitive stuff. I need to like it exposed or put to bed, one of the two. And God, you have no idea what I would give for Gavin Newsom to issue a debate challenge to Donald Trump. Oh God, would I love to see those two together. And you may not. I'm sure lots of people don't like Newsom. Lots of people in California don't like Newsom. I think he's a super guy, and I think he's been a decent governor. And the guy's just tenacious and he's bright, and he cares. And the more candidates I speak with, that's a key gauge for me. As are they, bright, and do they care? Are they motivated? And like I said, I'm really fortunate in finding that most of the Democrats are. We're coming to what is it? Kick ass and take names, or take names and kick ass, whatever it is. Yeah, guys, this is our chance, and it is our chance because I keep saying this. This is an all hands on deck alert. We really suck worldwide, and we're going down quickly. And if you don't believe me, check out some of these foreign newspapers, or even just check out the Financial Times. You know, uh, you'll see that we're not the highly respected country that Trump is telling us that we are. I mean, like I say, name an ally. Name an ally. Japan, no. France, no. England, no. Spain, no. Portugal, no. Italy, no. Greece, no. And now we're getting to Austria and Slovenia and Slovakia and all those places. And we all know from history, those guys have a history of violent dictators. And isn't that enough for us to be careful? But you see, the guardrails are off. All of there's nobody to constrain Trump, which is kind of how he gets $1.8 billion to, you would have to think, raise his own private little army. Because if the cash is going, or whether Trump actually pays out in cash, an entirely different question. But but it's not like it's his cash, so he'll go ahead and spend a little. But yeah, think about this: if the cash is designed to go to his allies, and his allies were those guys that stormed the Capitol, then the money's going to the guys that stormed the Capitol through Trump as a conduit. And isn't that like paying your own kind of army, or or putting together a group of mercenaries? You just gotta pay people and see which people wanna go a little farther. Yeah, it's a huge problem. But I swear, guys, I try really hard to find like uplifting things, but these are the times to really try men's souls like you wouldn't believe. Oh, but I tell you, here's something kind of positive. There's an article in the Times about forging a future warfare that leaves fighting to the machines. And when you think about that, you got a robotic army or robotic dogs. But even now, you have drones. Ukraine doesn't have tons of infantry that goes like marching and shooting. No, I mean these guys have thousands of drones programmed to hit God knows how many targets from safe inside Ukraine. I mean, this is asymmetrical warfare at its finest. This is David versus Goliath. And, David may beat Goliath, but he probably might only do it 1 out of 10 times. But this is looking like one of those times. And, even Ukraine, even though Ukraine was more than kind and more than generous and offering us help with our drone technology after being thrown out of the White House and yelled at by Vance and Trump. So yeah, now with Ukraine and you got, and by extension, Iran and the Gulf. What do those guys do? They don't send infantrymen. They don't have people. No, they'll send 300 drones. Warfare, all pre-designed. Now, who wins? Well, that's an even more perilous question. Because not only who wins, but at what price? And we all know the Iranians want reparations for the war damage and right to keep the Strait of Hormuz or to administer the strait such that it won't be open again. And guess what? Of course, that's like totally unacceptable because you've got you have to look at who's doing the talking, who's doing the representing here. And Trump has so hollowed out the negotiators in the State Department, just about every place else. And why did he do that? Because he wanted his guys, Witkoff and Kushner, to be the negotiators. Now, you would have thought that it would have helped somewhat to have people that were kind of had specialized knowledge in the subject area. But no, apparently that kind of specialized knowledge was, Trump just didn't agree with. He doesn't need a degreed person. He needs some idiot that'll say yes, sir. And you would have to think that on some level, that's what Wickoff and Kushner are. I don't. I think those two have been around him long enough. They know what language works, what language doesn't. So anyway, and the nuclear deal, the Obama deal was much better. I think the Obama deal put nukes off for like 20 years, and Obama put it in for almost the same length of time, and Trump he just couldn't get a better deal. And then he starts lying about it. And, what do you say when one of your own does something that despicable? What do you do? What do you say? Well, we'll kind of, we'll let you ponder that for a second and see what kind of rock and roll headline might, now, just to show you how important it is. The New York Times, not New York Times, the Financial Times on their front page, they have room for like two lead stories, I guess. And one of them in the Financial Times is the $1.8 billion slush fund. And guess what other time the $1.8 billion slush fund was on the front page was also today when it was on the front page of the New York Times. And whenever you get the New York Times and the Financial Times with the exact same headline, you can rest assured that's what people are talking about. And of course, what were they talking about? The $1.8 billion. Guys, that's just almost an inconceivable amount of money. And believe it or not, I've actually got a cousin that's a billionaire, or had a cousin that's a billionaire. He died of brain cancer. Uh, sometimes it's just not enough. And Trump being 1.8 billion, and like I said, the backdrop is ballroom for me, bupkis for you. New reflecting pond for me, and bupkis for you. Let's see here. More money for me in tax cuts, less money for you in healthcare and food. How about that? Does that kind of hit home? Did I put too fine of a point on things? Yeah, you got to kind of wonder after a while. But you know what we could do? That's a good idea. Rather than hang on just a second, we change this. Guys, I don't know if you remember when my phone beeped a little while ago. I didn't know what it was, didn't take a look. But it was an earthquake alert. My earthquake alert app went off. And it seems as though there was a 2.78 earthquake a mile west of Manhattan Beach. And Manhattan Beach is just a little below LA and Santa Monica. Right on, of course, right on the coast, but and 2.78 isn't much of a shake, but there's been a lot of shakes going on, and if these things were easily predictable, they'd be easily predicted, but they weren't. And I'm trying to on my iPhone if I wanted to get all messages. I was told to do that. Okay, yeah. So that was the deal. Was the earthquake? Huh? I don't know if you guys have ever been through an earthquake or anything, but it is the first one's always kind of nerve shattering. I remember my first one, and it was like a 5 or so. It's a decent shake, and I was in an apartment I had in Corona del Mar, and it was kind of like one of those. A lot of California architecture has this chalet kind of feeling with the beams and the ceilings and all that, and all I could think about was the walls going outward and the beams from the roof and all that just squishing me in my bed. Of course, we got a little lucky with that, but I do tend to pay attention to the 4 5s and over. Kind of unique to California, but and thank God we was the last bad one, Loma Prieta, the Bay Area quake. Yeah, these things can be just so devastating, shut down, entire cities and regions of the country because the roads buckle and you got to get there somewhere. Even though now it might be a little different, you can have drones deliver aid if to people who kind of get trapped in their cars, and because you never know where you're going to be when these things hit. Will you be on the overpass? Will you be on the shaky, rusty bridge? It's just, you never know till it happens. And, do give us a call, 949-629-3820. We'd love to hear what you have to say about all this. And by the way, has anybody been to like Sizzler lately? And does that is how much does it take is a family of four there like $150, 200? What's it cost to go to Sizzler these days? I may never know. I don't. Matter of fact, I'm not sure. There might be one up on Harbor Boulevard. I haven't been to one in light years. But yeah. So guys, Trump and 1.8 billion. I think I kind of beat that to death. How about the Long Island Railroad, guys? That's going to be a pain. And how about this? How about if we just chat about Trump and Taiwan and Xi for a second? And President Xi is 72, and he looks like he's in pretty decent shape. He looks like he takes care of himself. I don't see any sense of mental decline or cognitive decline. That's on one side. On the other side, I see an American president who, appropriately enough, stuffs his face with American cheeseburgers from McDonald's, disdains exercise. And you know what? Somebody, who was it, said that Trump was going to be remembered as the AI president? And I'm like, you're right. Trump will be remembered as the AI president, especially when AI stands for absent intelligence. Any the first president like absent intelligence? AI is AI is AI. I don't know if it has to be artificial intelligence. I don't see why it can't be a complete absence of intelligence. Got it? Okay, well, thought I'd run that by you. I thought it was pretty funny. So you got Trump and the and Taiwan. So we've committed to sell 14 billion, I think, worth of weapons to Taiwan. Now, 14 billion. Think about that. That's to a country, and 10% of 14 would be what? 1.4 billion. Trump is getting 1.8 billion in the slush fund. Clearly less than the value of the contract, but that's over 10% of a country's military budget to one guy whose intentions based on past behavior ain't too good. I mean, does anybody have really positive outlook for a Trump presidency? No. I mean, the way I see it, we're screwed for, hopefully for no more than a few months in November. That's why this is just so crucial now. And, like I said, the primaries, I know the primaries only attract the hardcore people. Hopefully Trump's hardcore MAGA appointments will wash out in the general. They usually do. They usually get on the ballot in the primaries because they're extreme enough to have to be able to count on Trump's base or Trump's following or, heaven forbid, Trump's blessing. Can you imagine being blessed by Trump? Jesus. I think I might just have to find an excuse and say no, thank you. Which kind of leads me to the statue of Trump. Now you got to admit, like Trump Kennedy Center thing was a little gauche, right? And how about the what else we have? Trump Kennedy Center. And of course we got the ballroom, the Trump ballroom, and everything else. And against this backdrop, look at what's happening. But anyway, kind of digress for a second. Oh, Taiwan. So $14 billion in sales, and Trump's wavering on this. Yeah, we've promised we'd defend Taiwan, and now Trump's like, well, I don't think so. I don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to. Make me right. Make me defend Taiwan, especially when he needs a favor from Xi. And as a matter of fact, one of the Financial Times writers wrote that during this past 2-day summit, that Trump just looked desperate and pleading by just by gushing over President Xi and just false praise, or just he might have thought it was genuine, but it's like the only tool he has. He can't, being nice just never is never Trump's first option. And when Trump is nice to somebody, you can rest assured he needs them more than they need him, right? When Trump is nice to Putin or Xi, that means that Trump needs Xi much more than Xi needs Trump. And that is kind of a definition of politics, a narrow version. Who gets what in a political system? In our system is, we have organized parties full of Democrats, Republicans, independents, green, God knows whatever. And as time goes on, it's getting harder and harder to really get a majority vote together. I actually think that having the diverse candidate core that the Democratic Party has on every level from city council on up, I think that those sort of candidates that bond with the community, that the community can relate to, I think they can do well. I don't see how the Republicans can possibly make a fiscal management argument, other than, and here's what they always do: they don't say they're they're great money managers. What they say is, or they don't say they're horrible money managers. Rather, they say the other side would be. You think we're bad? Wait, what if the other side gets in? And at this point, we've seen all. He's run all the plays he has. We know what's coming, and I don't. Unless, of course, I'm not in DC, I have no idea what's going on. And even if I was in DC, you'd have to be like really zeroed in on the Hill and or Georgetown, and you would have to assume that there are groups that regularly meet regarding this. Uh, but until now, or rather until then, it's a fight every day. It's a fight for one vote at a time. Like I said, Ada Arsenio, whom I think the world of, is a highly accomplished, highly respected Democrat. And she's taken it as, well, I have to win each vote. And the reason she has to win each vote is that Trump and his allies are publishing videos that aren't true. They're doctor videos. I don't know if you Photoshop a video or whatever you do to a video. I know you can Photoshop a picture. I guess you could Photoshop or use AI to get the image, whatever you want. But the fact of the matter is, they've dedicated tons of money to stop, a Latina from going to the state assembly. God help us. God help us. But let's see, what else did I want to mention today? The Tina Peters thing. Oh, how about this? A former Senator, Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, suggests, what did he say? That the Senate should act as a check on Congress. Check on Trump, sorry. The U.S. Senate should serve as a check on Trump's actions. Now, Lamar, I don't know how old you are now, but where were you like years ago? Huh? What finally tipped you over? Was it not January 6th? I mean, let us know here. 949-629-3820. We'd actually like to hear from the senator, what happened? What do you think? 949-629-3820. Call us up. If you got that good of an argument, put it on the air. Let's have at it. Uh, you guys, this is it. I'm not saying this is Armageddon, like the ultimate showdown between good and evil, but I'm saying it could be. I mean, this will determine the direction of America for the next 50 years. If the Republican gets trounced in a landslide, you may not see a Republican president for 50 years. On the other hand, if Trump cheats and somehow keeps the presidency in Republican hands, you might not see a Democrat president for 50 years. So the stakes, just couldn't be higher. And I'm asking everybody to vote. I'm asking everybody to join your local Democratic Party or your local Democratic neighborhood club. I know, some of these guys charge, and it might be anywhere from $20 to $50, and you may or may not have it. If you need to, use the old PayPal, pay it for no interest. And I never, ever suggest anybody going to debt. But this is different. And I am quite sure that everyone within they can hear my voice, knows that the times are that we're being hijacked as really what's going on. As the United States being hijacked, there is no more global leadership. We don't do global leadership anymore, do we? No. Why? Because everybody hates us. We pissed everybody off at the beginning with the tariffs, and Trump didn't get it any better. He has pissed off the world. And I said, and there's some argument to be made that he actually set fire to it and is fiddling while Rome burns. Well, I think he's fiddling and enriching himself as the world burns. I'll say at the end of the day, a billionaire should be pretty sad, right? But Trump is just he's a complete aberration, and he needs to be dealt with. He needs to be dealt with by overwhelming force, because it's the only thing he understands. And I know this is the kind of argument like the Israelis would make against the Palestinians, or the Palestinians would make against the Israelis, is that, the only thing they understand is pain and this, that, and the other. And, and whether it's true or not is an entirely different question. But you would have to believe that that's pretty close to the truth, right? So that I was sort of a little sneeze attack. I was listening to a band called Squeeze earlier. I should do my own version, call it Sneeze, but that's only for the allergic people who tune in. Now, let's see here. Yeah. We got the big Ossoff run our primary today. And just not to keep dwelling on this, but did anyone notice the article about the $500 million or $50 million stock transactions that have been going on from the White House? Like maybe before Trump goes on to praise the company. I mean, this is just outright market manipulation. Because it is outright market manipulation, let's take a second and see how that old American stock market fared out today. Ew. Looks like a bad day for the tech-heavy Nas. Oh, and we're a little before the close. Dow's down like a little over 300. It's at 49,000, so 300 is not a big deal. But you got to pay attention to this stuff. So yeah, it looks like a bad scene for the home team on Wall Street, but I say you guys did so well over the last couple of years that we don't have to dwell on this too much anymore. And how about this? Isn't there supposed to be some G7 meeting? And why do I think that those Americans just might not be there? Would you? No, I think I'd move on if I could. Okay, so let's get back to the this is killer stuff. Iran war spurs price surges, and that means interest rates are going up, borrowing costs are going up, everything's going up, except American standard of living. Our debt increases, and it sure does look like Trump just flat out doesn't care about anything or anybody other than himself. Well, I think in the South they might say himself. But yeah, the guy's just he's just completely amoral and completely selfish. Like I said, I can't wait to see what happens when he tries to give the money away to to his buddies. I can't. That is just such a staggering amount of money to give to someone in a rigged transaction. He's on both sides of the deal. How could he lose? And guys, we all know it's the Republicans have enabled all this, from Mitch McConnell to God knows who. So anyway, if the strait's still blocked, then there's still this huge logistical problem. How are we gonna move this? How are we gonna move this stuff? Well, how about Plan B? If Plan A was the Strait of Hormuz, what would Plan B be? And you know how some people say, well, it works until it doesn't work anymore? And you go, yeah. And then you're like, well, that's kind of stupid. If it works until it doesn't work anymore, that means there's no backup, no contingency. And the person goes, huh? I'm like, yeah, think about it. Think about what has to happen first and second and third. And, I say, I hope people get the message, but God only knows. It's coming up on 1:30 on Tuesday, Taco Tuesday, May 19th. And I tell you, I was kind of, that's every Californian's dilemma on Tuesdays where to have Taco Tuesday. And I, used to go to Taco Mesa on 19th Street, kind of opposite the DMV, near the McDonald's, and, not a particularly nice part of town. But anyway, I used to go there. They had veggie tacos, like $2.75, and two of them were right at $6, and I could barely eat them all, or barely eat both of them. So we may just have to pop in there today. I usually try to eat lunch before I go on, before showtime, but we just went ahead and skipped lunch, thinking we'd hold it together and feed the old put the old feed bag on after the show instead of before, or heaven forbid during the show. And guys, I do want to thank everybody on Instagram who's checking us out, because our posts have been getting hundreds of views, and that wasn't the case before, so we know we're starting to break through. We are an extremely new venture. We launched about a month ago, and I'm not a super gifted guy, so this may take a while to figure out, but I did manage to build the station, and now we're up to asking people to join us. And we I say we highlight Democrats and Democrats only, and we do that for a reason. And if you want to go into detail, let me know or give me a call 949-629-3820. And oh, by the way, if you're like I said, give us a call and let us know if things are, if your paycheck isn't covering things or how you're making do with childcare and an occasional sandwich. Like I said, just now, on the other hand, it might just be the case that you've done so well you really don't feel these effects of interest rates. And if that's the case, then I think you need to visit democracyradionetwork.com, the website. And I think that when you see the PayPal donate button, I don't want you to smash it. I don't want you to tap it. I don't want you to hit it. I don't want you to blow over it. I want you to smash the living daylights out of that thing and make a donation so old Uncle Ab can get us some car work done. How about that? We'd certainly appreciate that, as particularly now as the closer we get to June 2nd, primary date, the more things will accelerate. And then right after June 2nd, I guess the following Monday would be the 8th. I expect everybody to hit the ground running if they ever stop from the primary. Of course, somebody will be stopped in the primaries because only so many people can advance. Um, and everyone's talking about, of course, the California gubernatorial race on the Dem side, where I think the Republicans have two guys that are scoring fairly well. Who is it? The British accent. And British accent. And who's the other one? Tom Steyer. And I kind of think we've had enough of billionaires in political office. So and again, ask yourself who's more credible, who's more likely to keep their word. Because don't forget, that's kind of the underpinnings of society, are is that people keep their words. And there's a Latin phrase, pactum et servantum, and that means promises should be fulfilled. Kind of basic, central to contracts, right? Promises should be kept. Promises should be fulfilled. And if they're not, if there's damages, then we will go to court and we'll try to have a neutral judge or jury figure this out. So either way, the American system will work when it's unhindered. And Trump's countervailing to the rule of law, are not helping. They really do make us look like a banana republic. Or I guess, as in the immortal words of that orange-tinged subhuman being, what did he say in the words? I forgot. Anyway, moving right along, we have what? So, what do you guys think about the Palestinians? I personally think this is going to take ages for Palestine, or the Palestinian territory, whatever you want to call it, to be livable. I don't know what kind of half-life things have, like the missiles and all that have, but Gaza looked pretty unlivable to me. And I think, are they entitled to reparations? I don't think so. I think October 7th changed that. And likewise, according to the rules that I saw about January 6th, there's no way those guys should get paid for attacking the Capitol. And if you pay someone for attacking the Capitol, then it's pretty hard to deny some sort of military connection. Oh, and another thing I want to bring up really quickly is, I'm sure people have been noticing the voting rights case in Louisiana that was decided in the Supreme Court, and the general rush to redistricting. And what I want to say is, it's looking like this is going to backfire on the Republicans. I think that, well, let me ask this basic question. After the Supreme Court ruling, didn't the southern states' actions in moving to redistrict and minimize black representation. Is that not what happened? And like I say, it may not even go. I think that on some level, people are really upset about this, and people. I think most people just want to be treated fairly, and most people want to see other people treated fairly. And I think that the mere fact of the Republican legislatures doing this immediately after the ruling shows that there was discrimination there and that it's still existing. And so the Supreme Court's ruling is just, it's baffling logically, but it takes them exactly where they want to go. Now there's no apologies made for the white bigotry of the Republican Party. The Supreme Court let it happen, and everybody else said okay. So, in other words, wise, let's watch it for the Supreme Court implications. And you see what I talked earlier about Clarence Thomas being on the court for 30 years. But can you imagine having your granddad making life-altering decisions for the country? Would there be anything wrong with having like younger justices with terms of 10 years, and and keep some sort of fresh thought process going? Otherwise, you just get this an entrenched institution that develops inertia. It starts moving at its own pace and in its own direction, and it may not help you. And when we engage in political activities, we generally are trying to change the status quo, and that's why it's so hard on Democrats, especially now. I mean, we really do need to change the status quo. We need enough people turning out and voting regularly in places you might not expect. I mean, if we do this right, we'll clearly win, and that'll be a cold hard message to that subhuman orange tinged being in the White House. Yeah, and there's nothing like, trust me, there's nothing like having the votes. And in DC, what do you do when you don't have the votes? Right? What do you do? Well, you try to be a pain in the ass and all that, but at the end of the day, you don't have the votes. And we want to empower our Congress. And the only reason the representatives will have the power is if we vote for them en masse. I mean, every vote, every ballot, everywhere. Overlook nothing. Because don't forget, it's not like this is it's not like both sides have a history of cheating. I think that if you evaluate the histories, I think you'll see that that one side favors the dirty tricks aspect more than another. I think that's without saying it out loud, I think that's clearly the Republican Party. The fact of the matter is those guys just can't resist trying to do something really clever, and it usually backfires because they don't understand the game before they got in. But now that it's Democrats, new sheriffs. I mean, and this is what Trump's saying now. Well, sir, we didn't used to do it this way. And Trump goes, well, there's a new sheriff in town now, my way or the highway. And so, of course, what do we need? Our new sheriff or sheriffs. And let's clean out some of the stench. I mean, doesn't it just smell like garbage? You're draining the swamp. Spare me. Just spare me. I don't need to hear that. And another thing, you can have all the national prayer breakfasts on the mall you want. Okay? But I don't think that's, I don't think that's a long-term strategy. By doing that, you completely deny the history of the country and this I cannot imagine why this isn't central to everyone's belief, is that the United States was founded on the basis of freedom of religion. The Anglicans got tired of King Henry. What did they do? They protested. And from protesting, they got the name Protestant, right? So that's what America was about. It wasn't about, white nationalism. It wasn't about anything like that. Just the history's there. But again, it's another lie and distortion of history that we have to suffer through, frankly. Um, like I said, there's only one way to get it to stop, and we will be anxiously waiting June 2nd and November, whatever date that is. Guys, I make an analogy to being on a sailboat in the middle of the night and you encounter this storm, and it's a long lasting storm, and you don't know if you're going to make it through or not. So, what do? You get all hands on deck, everybody. You take precautions to get the sails down, and then you go lock yourself in the cabin and hope for the best. But here we can't just lock ourselves in the cabin and hope for the best. Here we have to lock ourselves into a belief that we can and will make things better by winning, and that every vote counts. And this is the coaches all talk about leaving things on the field or leaving nothing behind and giving everything you have. Well, guys, this is it. I mean, if do you want more cuts? Because don't forget, everything Trump's done has done nothing but drive interest rates up, which means, guess what? We have to pay more interest to our bondholders, and that's expensive. And then what happens? Let's take Japan, for instance. What happens when when their bond yields are higher than ours? Well, guess what? They sell ours and buy theirs. And guess what happens when you sell bonds? Interest rates go up because you have to entice more people to buy them. Somebody's already said, I don't have confidence in this. So you have to say, well, geez, I'll show you confidence. Here's, prime plus a half. Like everything, this whole interest rate deal, especially with the new Fed guy, Warsh, I have no idea exactly what he wants to reform in the Fed, but I'm pretty sure, the one thing I am pretty sure of is that the Fed does not need reforming. The Fed has two functions, two jobs. It's going to keep inflation under control, 2%, and it's got to provide for full unemployment, which is generally 95%. And of course, how do they do this? With the one crude tool they have, interest rates. If they want to restrict the flow of money, then they'll make it the interest rate super high, like Paul Volcker did when we had 21% interest rate. Can you imagine? 21%, but we held to it and whipped inflation. That would have been in the mid to late 70s, I think, just before Reagan. Because you had the whole whip inflation now thing from Gerald Ford or his wife, and but yeah, so that's how the Fed keeps things, how they fulfill their two mandates with that one tool. Let's say they want to spur hiring. Well, then maybe they'll lower interest rates, or maybe they want to spur some commercial activity. They'll cut interest rates. But that doesn't work when inflation is going through the roof. And like I say, these are all self-inflicted. Every reputable economist before the election told us exactly what Trump's tariffs and political positions would take us. Everyone said hyperinflation, stagflation, like the worst of all possible worlds, because when you have stagflation, high unemployment, and a range-bound stock market, there's not much the Fed can do. You'd want to cut interest rates on one hand and raise on the other, but you can't do that. You gotta pick a side of the street and walk on it. I mean, of course, you can hold patent and not raise or lower. And one other thing I ought to bring up just is because I told someone this and they didn't know. Somebody, they talk about the interest rates went up by 25 basis points. And somebody asked me what a basis point was. And I'm like, well, it's just another decimal, right? It's just another decimal. So in that regard, you would hope people kind of get it. But anyway, I kind of digress. It's getting me like 1:45-ish on this really nice Taco Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, here in our undisclosed secret location on Newport Harbor. Excuse me, in Newport Beach, California. I think that's evidence my throat's starting to go. Let's take a little sip of somehow we managed to keep coffee for the entire show. So what a good deal for me. We want to apologize. Apparently, we weren't able to get Raymond on today, and he's more than welcome to come back anytime. That's Raymond Liu for State Senate District 10. And that's the area around Fremont, California. And like I say, Fremont is in the East Bay, just across, I want to say the San Pablo Bay. It's not the Richmond San Rafael Bridge, it's another bridge. But it is a Bay Area, so it's always kind of nice. And if I'm not mistaken, Fremont, California was the home of Saturn car manufacturing. And then it became, didn't they do some sort of robot or something? Fremont's not too far away from San Francisco. Of course, the Bay Area is just a general pain to get around. But if you don't take the ferry, they used to have jazz cruises on Friday evenings, and just get on by the ticket and get on the boat and get off whenever. A couple of laps of the bay. Maybe a adult beverage or two. And actually, it's kind of a law, and you don't want to break the law, but you got to have an adult beverage on board. I don't remember who exactly started that, but they have my undying gratitude, because even when it's really cold, there's still a good reason to get a good old mug of coffee, pour a little bit out, pour that mini bottle of Jameson's Irish whiskey in there, and all will be right with the world. A cold day, a boat, and a hot adult beverage. Man, I'm telling you what, it doesn't get a whole lot better. So give us a call, 949-629-3820, and let us know what's going on in your world. Is it take a mortgage for Sizzler? Or how about a car? And that would really take some mortgage. And what's happening is that, if you guys remember, during COVID, there was a great microchip shortage, which meant there was a car shortage. And what happens when supply is restricted? Price goes up. Demand usually goes up, price goes up. And so you had people back in the COVID days paying $10,000 over sticker. So let's fast forward a couple of years later, where we are now, and guess what? They owe $10,000 more than the vehicle's worth. So what do they do? And don't forget, at this point, it's 5 or 7 years old, so they kind of need something else anyway. But what do they do? And these are all the effects of an ill-considered vote for president. If anybody would have thought this through, there's just no way Trump would have won. For any sane person, you would really hope January 6th would have been just it. I try to live and learn, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm just at a loss as to what to learn from this. All the good guy, bad guy scenarios don't apply here. And at this point, I think we all need to be realistic adults and realize that the good guys don't always win. The good guys don't always win. They certainly don't always win automatically. And while David may beat Goliath, he's only going to do it every 10th time, 1 out of 10% of the time. He ain't going to do it consistently. Unless you're like, say, Ukraine and Russia with drones, but that's not what I'm talking about here. So, guys, I have railed on and on today, and I hope we haven't made it too terribly boring for you. But I usually have something to say, and I genuinely hope that people take into consideration, because it's no more than analytical thinking. How do you decide? How do you decide who to vote for? I know one guy who's started his own medical company, publicly traded his own Gulf Street, flies himself. House here in Newport that he kind of comes to every now and then, and in addition to his primary. And his position is he will vote for whoever puts money in his pocket. And I've heard people say that before. I've always thought that was, unfortunately, an incredibly shallow position. But it does reflect the fact that we are a capitalistic society, and that in a capitalistic society, a merchant will sell a peasant the rope to hang himself. So let's do keep all that in mind. It's about 10 minutes before 2, and we'll wrap up with a few slight points from the Financial Times. And the point is that did I mention this earlier? I think I did. That we've spent an extra $40 billion on gasoline since the war. And on a that's kind of depressing, isn't it? $40 billion, a mere token of compared to the 1.8 Trump gets. But guys, you can use all the trite sayings you want. You can tell people to stop the insanity and stop this and the other. But let's kind of get down to brass tacks. This is about stopping an individual in his movement. MAGA didn't exist. It's kind of I don't think Hillary was that far off when she called them deplorables. I mean, these guys that have pledged allegiance to Trump as opposed to allegiance to the country. And you see, that's what all those loyalty oaths were about with Trump. He doesn't want you to be loyal to the country, because if you're loyal to the country, then there's certain rules you have to follow. But if you're loyal to Trump, then the rules don't seem to matter very much, do they? And it's that sort of hijacking of the country that's been done. And all we want is, and everybody says all we want is our country back, but all we want is a democracy to live in. If you guys would play fair, we'd have no problem playing fair. But when you guys are led by a cheater, you don't leave much choice. When you're somebody's fighting you with fire, I kind of like Newsom's approach. Sometimes he'll fight back with fire. Sometimes he'll fight fire with fire. Sometimes he'll fight fire with water. Sometimes he'll fight fire with sand. Newsom's smart enough to know that there are different approaches to solving different problems. And as it is now, we have the kind of subhuman that believes that if it can't be done with force, it can't be done. All he's got is this big military hammer, and if all he's got is this big military hammer, then guess what? Every problem looks like a nail, and he's going to swing at it. Uh, and I see he's just not a terribly bright guy to begin with. So anyway, what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and kind of, I hate leaving that on that kind of a negative note. So I'm going to kind of shift gears and look forward to Taco Tuesday. And I don't know what you guys are going to do, but I think I may head over to Taco Mesa on 19th Street. I say not a great neighborhood, but not too bad. They have parking. And matter of fact, I got my old cell phone stolen there, and a woman that was sitting next to me got up and chased the guy down and got my phone back for me. So I always go there with mixed feelings. Oh, but that was too funny when that woman chased the guy down. And, and I was ready to kick him in the balls. I didn't know what else to do. Guy stole my phone. I'm pretty pissed. But she tracked him down for me. And so anyway, I usually go there for the vegetarian tacos, and they're like 275, which I think is half price. And so I looked at the menu today just to see, and I never looked at the menu to see what else is on their Taco Tuesday menu, which, as everyone knows, tends to be a little limited these days. So they had a vegetarian taco and a fried fish taco. So I think that's how Uncle Ab is going to end his show with a notion of Taco Mesa and a little state face stuffing or stuff facing or however it comes out. And guys, we just want to thank everybody in the world for tuning in and listening. If anybody listening on the replay, we appreciate that too. Guys, if we can be of any help, let us know. And if not, you know what time it is. I think it is Roger Wilco